finally breaks his silence on Charles Bronson. Born Manuel Antonio Rodolfo Quinn, Oaxaca, on April 21, 1915, in Chihuahua, Mexico, Quinn's life was a wild ride of grit, hustle, and constant reinvention. The son of a Mexican father with Irish roots and a Mexican mother, young Quinn faced struggle from the very start, but that never stopped him. When his family moved to Los Angeles, life hit hard. Poverty wasn't just a word, it was their daily reality. Quinn took on every tough job he could find, from boxing rings to construction sites, all to keep his family going. Those early struggles carved real-life toughness into him, the same raw energy that later exploded through his movie roles. Then came the twist of fate. Quinn's passion for art and architecture led him to study under the one and only Frank Lloyd Wright. Imagine that! Wright saw something special, that burning presence, that expressive spark, and pushed him toward acting. That advice changed everything. From that point, Quinn's destiny was set toward Hollywood greatness, playing small, stereotypical ethnic roles. But Quinn wasn't built to stay in anyone's box. He kept pushing, sharpening his skills, proving he could bring depth, emotion, and power like no one else. By the early 1950s, the industry couldn't ignore him anymore. His performance in Viva Zapata, 1952, blew audiences away, where he played Eufemio Zapata, the fiery brother of revolutionary Emiliano Zapata. That role didn't just make him a star, it made him a symbol of strength, passion, and unstoppable talent. That one role changed everything for Anthony Quinn. His fiery performance earned him his very first Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, making him the first Mexican-born actor ever to win an Oscar. What a groundbreaking moment! But Quinn didn't stop there. He came back even stronger, winning his second Oscar for Lust for Life, 1956, where he brought to life the wild and emotional painter Paul Gauguin with raw power and heart. Those two golden statues proved Quinn wasn't just another actor, he was a force of nature. Then came the role that turned him into a living legend, Alexis Zorba in Zorba the Greek, 1964. That performance wasn't just acting, it was pure electricity. Zorba became a reflection of Quinn himself, bursting with energy, wisdom, and passion for life. His take on the free-spirited Greek earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor and introduced his charm to audiences all over the world. Zorba wasn't just a man, he was a movement, a symbol of joy, courage, and the unstoppable human spirit. And that was exactly who Quinn was at his core. Bold, fearless, and full of life. Throughout his incredible career, Quinn starred in more than 150 films, breaking barriers across genres and languages. He portrayed legendary figures like Jesus Christ in The Robe, Barabbas in Barabbas, 1961, and Auda Abu Tayyi in Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. Every role showing off his unmatched range. In each performance, he gave depth and pride to characters others might have played flat. His secret? That rare mix of strength and vulnerability that connected with people everywhere. Anthony Quinn wasn't just a powerhouse on screen. He was an artist through and through. A painter, sculptor, and writer, his creative fire burned in every direction. His artwork lit up galleries across the globe, showing off his deep love of beauty, shape, and cultural identity. He believed art couldn't be boxed into one form, and he attacked every creative outlet with the same fearless passion that made him unforgettable in Hollywood. His books and memoirs peeled back the curtain on a man forever chasing meaning, wrestling with questions of identity, purpose, and what real success truly meant. But behind the fame and awards, his personal life was just as bold and dramatic as his movie roles. Full of love, conflict, and restless energy, Quinn lived with an intensity that couldn't be tamed. In 1937, Anthony married Catherine DeMille, and that union instantly tied him to Hollywood's royal bloodline.
Catherine was the adopted daughter of the legendary filmmaker Cecil DeMille, one of the most powerful names in the industry. For Quinn, who had grown up in struggle after moving from Mexico, this marriage seemed like stepping into another world. It wasn't just love, it was opportunity wrapped in luxury and influence. Through the DeMille family, Quinn got a glimpse into the upper ranks of Hollywood's elite, gaining connections that helped push his career forward. Still, he refused to be seen as someone who coasted on family ties. He wanted his success to be his own. Together, Anthony and Catherine built a big family, raising 5 children and keeping up the image of a strong Hollywood household. But beneath the polished surface, their story was filled with the same fire, complexity, and passion that defined Quinn's entire life. Catherine DeMille stood by Anthony Quinn through it all. She poured her heart into creating a stable home while his career shot from small supporting roles to powerhouse performances. But as Quinn's fame skyrocketed, so did the chaos behind closed doors. His fiery spirit, wild emotions, and endless hunger for excitement started to tear at the fabric of their marriage. The man who could command any screen couldn't always control his own impulses. Later in life, Quinn didn't try to hide it. He admitted that he had been unfaithful, driven by ego, curiosity, and a constant craving for emotional and physical thrill. Those choices left scars that couldn't be ignored. The trust between him and Catherine cracked under the pressure, and after almost 30 years together, full of both triumph and tension, their marriage finally fell apart in 1965. What had once been a Hollywood dream turned into heartbreak and closure. But Quinn didn't stay single long. In 1966, just a year after his divorce, he married the Italian costume designer Yolanda Adoliri, a woman much younger than him, bursting with creativity and European flair. She brought new color into his world, and at first their love seemed to give him a fresh spark, like a man reborn. Together, they had 3 children, and for a while, Quinn seemed to find balance between family and his whirlwind career, splitting his time between Hollywood and Europe. Yolanda wasn't just his partner, she was his anchor, managing their home life while he kept chasing art, film, and adventure across continents. Yet behind that calm surface, the same restless fire that defined Quinn never truly faded. Even his second marriage couldn't escape the storm. Despite the comfort and passion Anthony Quinn found with Yolanda Adoliri, his restless heart led him down the same road again. During their marriage, he carried on a long-term relationship with Friedel Dunbar, a secret that would eventually shake everything apart. With Friedel, he fathered 2 children while still married to Yolanda, and when the truth surfaced, it sparked emotional chaos and a mess of legal drama that splashed across the headlines. But that wasn't the only scandal following Quinn. Over the years, rumors swirled, and sometimes he even admitted it himself, that he had romantic entanglements with some of Hollywood's biggest legends, Carole Lombard, Rita Hayworth, Ingrid Bergman, and Maureen O'Hara. Each story, whether fleeting or fiery, built his image as the ultimate Hollywood lover, magnetic, passionate, and impossible to resist. Yet behind that charm lay a man torn between desire and guilt, adored for his intensity, but judged for the heartbreak he caused. By the 1990s, after more than 30 years together, Quinn and Yolanda's marriage was barely holding on. The final blow came when he began an affair with his secretary, Catherine Benvin, and once again the relationship brought 2 more children into his already complicated life. The tension, betrayal, and public scrutiny became too much to bear, and by 1997, their marriage officially ended in a bitter, very public divorce.
The split was messy and emotional, a painful reflection of decades of unresolved wounds and restless passion. Yet, even after everything, Quinn didn't walk away alone. He married Catherine Benvin, the woman who had already changed the course of his later years. At an age when most would slow down, Quinn was still rewriting the script of his wild, untamed life. Even in his later years, Anthony Quinn never slowed down. He threw himself into fatherhood again with fierce energy, proudly embracing his role as a dad and staying deeply connected to his family. This last marriage showed both the calm and the chaos within him, proof that he craved love and connection, yet couldn't escape the same patterns that had defined his romantic life for decades. It was a mix of devotion and contradiction, just like the man himself. For years, interviewers grilled Quinn about his famous Hollywood peers, but one name always made him pause: Charles Bronson. The two were often compared: tough, raw, and built from pure grit. Both carried that aura of danger, that edge of realness that couldn't be faked. Fans loved to put them in the same league, two men who looked like they could survive anything. But only later in life did Quinn finally break his silence and open up about Bronson. When he did, his words weren't full of drama or ego. They were honest, powerful, and deeply respectful. He said, "People saw Charles as this unbreakable wall of stone, but that was only the armor he wore for the world." What a statement! Quinn saw right through the hard exterior. He knew that behind that icy stare was a man who had fought his way out of nothing, someone who had turned pain into strength. Coming from poverty himself, Quinn felt that connection instantly. Both men had grown up hungry, struggling, always fighting to prove they belonged. And that shared fire, that survival instinct, was what made Bronson's presence on screen so intense, so real, and so unforgettable. When Anthony Quinn reflected on Charles Bronson's acting style, he shut down the idea that Bronson was limited or one-dimensional. Charles didn't waste words, Quinn explained. Every movement, every silence meant something. That takes discipline, that takes intelligence. What a compliment from one legend to another. Quinn admired how Bronson could command a scene without flashy speeches or dramatic gestures. His power came from that quiet fire that burned just beneath the surface. You couldn't look away even when he said nothing. Quinn also spoke about Bronson's tough guy image in Hollywood, that cold, distant reputation that followed him everywhere. He was guarded, Quinn admitted, and for good reason. When you come from where we came from, you don't trust easily. To Quinn, Bronson's toughness wasn't about ego at all. It was pure survival instinct. Life had taught him that showing weakness could be dangerous, so he built a wall around himself and never let the wrong people in. Despite their shared roots, Quinn pointed out a sharp difference between them. Charles was more solitary than I was, he said. I thrived on chaos, on people, on noise. Charles preferred distance. He needed silence. But Quinn never mistook that quietness for arrogance. He understood it as Bronson's way of keeping control in an industry that constantly tried to shape actors into something safer and more predictable. What struck Quinn most was how Charles turned that silence into strength, transforming his solitude into a legacy. Charles became a symbol, Quinn said, and he meant it. A symbol of resilience, of toughness, of the kind of man who didn't need to shout to be heard. To Anthony Quinn, Charles Bronson wasn't just a symbol of violence or revenge. He stood for the everyday man who refused to break, no matter how hard life hit. Quinn believed audiences around the world connected to Bronson because they could feel the truth in him. He didn't look like someone pretending to struggle. He looked like a man who had lived every hardship his characters faced. That raw authenticity was what made Bronson so unforgettable. When Quinn finally broke his silence, he made one thing clear. He wasn't trying to turn Bronson into a myth or a legend. He wanted people to see the real man behind the stare. He wasn't perfect, Quinn admitted. None of us were. But he was honest in his strength, and that honesty is rare. Those words hit deep, coming from someone who understood how hard it was to stay real in an industry built on illusion. It wasn't gossip, jealousy, or rivalry. It was respect, a heartfelt tribute from one survivor to another. Quinn's final words about Bronson were full of understanding, the kind only a man who'd walked a similar road could give. Two icons shaped by struggle, both leaving their mark on cinema in ways that will never fade. As the years passed, Quinn quietly stepped back from the spotlight.
the man who had once filled the screen with unstoppable energy found peace in the calm beauty of Bristol, Rhode Island. There, overlooking the endless stretch of Narragansett Bay, he spent his final days surrounded by the things that mattered most: privacy, reflection, and the serenity he had chased all his life. On June 3, 2001, Anthony Quinn passed away in Boston at 86 after battling complications from lung cancer treatment. His death closed the chapter on a life that spanned continents, cultures, and generations of film. Yet his legacy, fierce, passionate, and larger than life, still burns bright on every screen he ever touched. When news of Anthony Quinn's passing broke, the world fell silent. Fans, friends, and fellow artists mourned the loss of a man who had lived and breathed his art with fiery passion. Fierce, fearless, and undeniably human, Quinn had been larger than life both on and off the screen. His death felt like the curtain closing on an era that could never truly be replaced. His funeral was held at the historic First Baptist Church in America, resting quietly on College Hill in Providence, Rhode Island, a place full of history, grace, and solemn beauty. It was the perfect setting to honor a man whose life had played out like a movie of its own, filled with struggle, triumph, love, and art. Friends, family, and admirers gathered to remember him, their hearts heavy but grateful for the unforgettable roles he brought to life and the barriers he broke for generations to come. In one of the most touching final gestures, Quinn's wife made a deeply personal request to lay him to rest not in a traditional cemetery, but in the place he cherished most, his own backyard. The couple had bought their Bristol property in 1995, drawn to its peace and breathtaking view of the bay. Under the shade of an old maple tree, a silent witness to his final years, Quinn found what he had searched for all his life: belonging, serenity, and home. The town of Bristol granted the family's request, allowing the actor to remain forever in the place that had brought him true peace. And there, overlooking the endless horizon, rests Anthony Quinn, a man whose passion, artistry, and spirit will never fade. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment to keep his incredible legacy alive.